Hey everybody. Okay, so my original plan was to do this in one video, but I have way too much footage. As I went through it and looked at the drilling and the welding of the tube, it's going to probably be 3 videos when it's all said and done. So this one's going to be the second one. I'm going to show you some of the process. I'll talk you through some of the things that I'm doing, and then we'll get into probably the welding on the third video. So check it out. So we're starting with our pattern. I know the pattern fits in my frame where I had it set on the drawing, so I can use that to find the overall length. Using a carbide scribe that will score the metal, combination square that's been set to 1 inch so it's centered on a 2-inch piece. This dry erase marker will give me some color on the surface of the metal that'll make the carbide scribe show up a little bit better. I'm using a square. That is not necessary. I was trying to make it look neat for the video, and then I missed the spot anyway. So now you can see as I use the scribe, now I'm finding the center point widthwise on this 2-inch, 1/4-inch plate. And that's 1 inch in from each edge. And because the piece is 1 inch longer at each end, I can come in from this end 1 inch, and that will be my end hole. And I'm going to mark it all the way across. That way I have a point to start and stop my radius. In case I trace a circle, you can do that different ways, and we'll show that in a minute. Now I'm going to mark the center of this, and if you use your punch, you can slide it and kind of you can feel the intersection. That's going to give you the best center of the hole. Hit that a couple times, give myself a little impression to get my drill bit started. That keeps the drill bit from skipping around when you start to drill. Now, my center to center of end hole to end hole overall is 32 inches, but my piece is 1 inch longer, so I'm going to add that inch to the hole, and then I'm going to pull to 17 inches here, and that should be where my center hole falls. So I'll mark that with the marker, just double check it to make sure it's good from the other end. And I'm only going to drill these 2 holes first, the hole in the end and the hole in the center. So I'm going to lay out the center hole here. And that way I know I'm using this number for all of my holes, which will keep them as accurate as possible to each other. And hopefully that keeps the mechanism working more smoothly. Now I can use my combination square to find center again. And this will be my pattern piece that I'll use to drill the rest of my leg parts. Center hole. You can see that line is a lot sharper than a pencil line would be. It gives me a lot more precision. And there's the center of the hole on the end. And before you drill your hole, you can place a compass where you've punched that. Now on the other ones, I'm going to end up drilling the hole first. So I'll probably just take a 2-inch circle and trace that on the end. Because again, it doesn't need to be very accurate. That's more decorative and just to keep that corner out of the way. So I've clamped these 2 pieces together, and I use 2 clamps. So if I ever have to move one clamp, I still have another one on there so the pieces don't shift around. And I want to line that pattern piece up with the drill bit so I'm not changing the pattern at all. And I'm starting with a 3/16 drill bit here. It's a little bit easier to drill. I'll drill all of my holes with this size bit, and then I'll increase it to the final size, which will be a 5/16 bit. And so I'll drill the end, then I'll drill the center, then I'll spin the pattern around, line up the center holes with a drill bit, and drill the other end. And once I've done that with all the flats, then I can go on to the tubular parts of the legs. And that's a 1/4 inch spacer. This is 1.5 inch tubing, and that's 2-inch plate. So by spacing it off of there 1/4, that centers the tube on the 2-inch plate. And now I'm able to drill in the center of the tubing using the hole in the center of the 2-inch plate. Again, lining it up so the holes are perfectly aligned and the drill bit's not modifying the pattern at all. And this is as square as I can get it because this tubing is not perfectly square. So there's always going to be a little bit of variation in your holes, but this is about the best that I can achieve with my setup. And this will get these holes in both sides of the tube as square as possible to each other. And I'll follow the same procedure. I'll drill the center hole, then I'll spin the pattern around, line the center holes up with a drill bit so that I know that they're in the same spot, and then I'll drill the other end. Once everything's been drilled with the 3/16 holes, now I can go back and take my pattern, which is still clamped to the final tube, and I can enlarge the hole to a 5/16. And because they were clamped together, I could do my first holes all at once. I finished drilling all of those holes, and now I've got 5/16 holes in everything, and I'm going to clean up the corners of the legs. This is my cordless bandsaw. It won't cut curves, definitely not curves this sharp. So I'm going to take off a couple of cuts, nip it off, and then I will go back with a 4.5-inch grinder and round the whole surface out. You could use a sanding table. You could use a belt sander with the proper belt on it. It doesn't have to be super precise, so I'm just using what I have to clean this up quickly and get those parts rounded up. Now to round these for bending, I'm using this socket, which is the same diameter as the inside of the tube, because I want this half circle that I'm tracing here to be to the inside of the tubing, because I'm going to leave the walls of the tubing on two faces to bend around and cap this piece. So by doing that to the inside, now I can take my bandsaw, and you could do this with a cutoff wheel. You could do it with a hacksaw. It's a lot of cutting. But I can run the bandsaw down the inside face all the way to where it intersects the radius of that curve. And so that I'm not overcutting or undercutting the bottom side, that's why I'm tilting this bandsaw so that I'm doing most of my cutting on the top where I can see what the blade is doing. And then I can flip it over and I can finish it from the other side without having my cuts go off course too much. And here I'm trying to make sure that I have the end of that curve marked square all the way around, because I want the cap on this to be as square as possible. And by making sure that my cuts line up when I bend my parts around, it will keep them a little bit more true. So now I can place that socket so that the tip of that curve lines up with the one on the other face. Trace this one again to the inside of the tube, and now I can finish this cut where I can see it. You can see that cut started to get a little off course a little bit, but all that stuff will be cleaned up when I weld it. Well, it'll be cleaned up when I grind it. My welding leaves a little bit to be desired aesthetically. But we'll get both sides of this cut all the way back. And initially I was going to leave half of the curve on one side and half of the curve on the other, but I decided if I leave one side long and cut the other side back to the tip of the curve, and you'll see it in a minute here, it simplifies the cuts. And once I bend everything around the end and weld it and grind it smooth, you won't know where the weld was necessarily. So it doesn't really matter that these two sides aren't going to be symmetrical. But this simplifies the cut because now with one pass across here, I can get rid of the excess I don't need on this face, which is that piece that's falling away. And I can cut across these two pieces, which are going to be waste. And again, I like to be able to see what the blade is doing, so I don't like cutting blindly. That's why I'm flipping that over. And now we'll get rid of those two pieces. And this is the final shape that I'm looking for. I've got to pick away at it a little bit with the bandsaw. You could do this with a jigsaw with a metal cutting blade in it. It's pretty thin wall tube, so it's not hard to cut, but it's tough to get in that corner. And I'm cleaning it up here with a cutoff wheel. Just a word of advice, try to use the edge of the cutoff wheel and don't put side pressure on that wheel. That's a good way to make that thing break and blow up in your face. So it's not a good idea to grind with it too much, but I need something narrow that will get in that space. So I clean that up. We get it to this space, this shape, and we're ready to start shaping it and welding it. Okay, so that's the second part that shows you some of the drilling and a breakdown of the tubing, and we'll get to the welding in the next video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and hope you can join us next time. Take care.